Well, hello again from here inside St James's Park, where they're just watering the pitch over my shoulder there on a day where Newcastle have poured cold water on Arsenal's title aspirations. And I dare say you guys would have enjoyed that, given the history between the two sides in recent seasons. Now, Mikel Arteta has just said to us downstairs then, I think it was a little bit of a moan, they are good at what they do, they are good at what they do. He kept on repeating that. Well, yeah, they are good at what they do. I think the inference was Newcastle had perhaps bent the rules, that they were physical, that they had bullied Arsenal. Yeah, okay, there's no problem with that, is there? If Arsenal want to be champions, if they want to be title contenders, they best start doing some bullying themselves there, because I thought they were poor. To come here against a team who started the day in 12th and 5 without a win, you wouldn't know come the end of it which one of these was going for the Premier League. I thought Newcastle were deservedly the winners. They matched them in every department and they bettered them. And yes, to go back to what Mikel Arteta said, they are good at what they do, aren't they? And this was a day that was all about the throwback, about the retro. Eddie Howe's just admitted as much. It was 22-23 all over, that same pattern of a game where Newcastle get a lead down to the clinical finishing of Alexander Isak invariably, and they then see it out. And it wasn't really backs to the wall. I thought they saw out the game. They were so smart in the second half. Brilliant performances all over. But those characteristics upon which that success was built, aggression, pressing, energy, togetherness, the street smarts, the dark arts, we've got to come to that, coupled with quality at key moments. And there was nothing more retro than the goal itself. And I don't mean going back 2 years, I mean going back 27 years to 1997. And it was like watching Keith Gillespie gallop down the wing there and cross it for Tino Asprilla on the famous night they took down Barcelona. Now, Anthony Gordon on the right, just to make the point, he's not able to produce that cross on the left. There's been so much discourse and discussion about Gordon wanting to be on the left, and when he comes over at the right, he's not quite the same player. I would agree in terms of his general game. Gordon does look happier on the left, but he can't do that from there. And the cross was just incredible. The whipped nature of it, and then the whiplash header finish from Isak. It was just a brilliant, brilliant goal. And yes, it was against the run of play. You know, the first 10 minutes, Arsenal looked as if they were settling in and finding a rhythm, and you just thought it might be a long afternoon for Newcastle. But from that point on, that marked a massive change in the game and the momentum and the belief. And from that point on, Newcastle were brilliant. I really thought they were, and that was to a man as well. And the goal, those are rare goals, and the reason they're rare is it looks ever so simple, you know, that cross, a right winger with his right foot and the centre forward just heads it in. And the reason they don't come around very often is because they're not simple. It's world class, those two combining like that. And you can see why Arsenal do so covet Alexander Isak. He's just cost them the title there today. Whether they come back in the summer and try to make him the man who can win it for them next year, that is a discussion for down the line. But on the evidence of this here today, Isak might just look at it and think that he's better off it's somewhere like St James's Park. If Newcastle can replicate that, and that's the big challenge now, because we had the big performance against Manchester City a few weeks ago, and it didn't really convert to a good run of results. This has got to be, not just today, the last 3 days. I said that Wednesday night against Chelsea could be season-saving, season-defining. They had to follow that up today, and boy did they follow that up. The noise and the feel-good and the momentum from Wednesday night spilled over into today on the pitch and in the stands as well. It was everything I thought it would be. I was convinced Newcastle wouldn't lose, and I was right. I should have been a little bit more forthright in my prediction, and there was such good value for those 3 points. And remarkably now, it only puts them 3 points behind Arsenal. So when I'm talking about Champions League aspirations, go in, that might have been a little bit premature, especially if they can reproduce that. And how has Eddie Howe achieved that turnaround these past few days? Well, he's done it, particularly today as well, by picking the best team, if not the best players. There was a lot of surprise pre-match, and I was among those who looked at the team sheet and wondered why Sandro Tonali had been left out. Not because I think he's been wonderful on the whole this season. If Wednesday hadn't existed and Eddie Howe had made that change and taken Tonali out and brought Longstaff back in on the back of Chelsea in the games that went before, I would have said, okay, you know, you can see the understanding that, try something different in there. I just thought Tonali was so good on Wednesday in the new role that it felt like a shame not to give him the chance to then bounce into this game and take that momentum with him, given that he has struggled for that run of form, I feel, recently. So that was a surprise pre-match, but Eddie picked the team he thought for today could win the game, and the return to the midfield of Sean Longstaff. Sean Longstaff, by the way, who now this season hasn't started on a losing team for Newcastle. They're unbeaten with Longstaff in from the off. Joe Willock on the left-hand side, Bruno back in the middle. The Joe Willock, Joe Linton partnership, we've got to talk about that and how fundamental that is to Newcastle's success. Eddie picked a team for today, and it worked. And yes, Tonali was unlucky, and he came on at the end and did very well. His first involvement, he goes on a little dribble and wins a free kick. But Eddie got it right, and that was reflected by his name ringing out around the stadium there towards the end. To think some of the ridiculous things that were posted and not necessarily said, no one's ever really come up to me in person and cast any doubt on the manager. A lot of that is confined to online. Although saying this, I was on radio on TalkSport this morning, and the host asked me, when Eddie Howe didn't go to England, was that met with a little bit of regret on Tyneside? Was there a feeling that it might have done them good if Eddie'd gone and they'd got the compensation of a new manager? This was before the game, by the way. I said, no, absolutely not. That's nonsense. The success of Howe and what they did those 2 seasons ago, there was always this illusion, this idea that it was powered by Saudi money and the arrival of new owners. It wasn't. What they did, and that's becoming more apparent now given the reality check of PSR during the past 12 months, what Eddie Howe achieved in taking that team from 19th to 4th, and we've been over this many times before, but important to state it again, it was a miracle. It was brilliant. It was incredible. So, no, to answer the question again of the TalkSport presenter, Newcastle's best manager, best man, their best chance of success is Eddie Howe. Yes, it's been difficult this season for so many reasons us guys have spoken about, but with a really tricky week ahead of him on the back of that Chelsea defeat last Sunday, where I didn't think they did play particularly well, to then respond with the huge victory here on Wednesday and to follow it up today, and by picking a team which, and he smiled when he was asked the Tonali question afterwards, he said if it had gone the other way, he knows the criticism that would have come and the narrative that would have been played out on the back of him not picking Tonali on the back of his best game of the season. But he didn't. He picked the team he thought could win today, and duly they did. And on the midfield as well, and this was the question I asked of him, there's been so much discourse around that midfield, and after the game at Chelsea last week, he said he thought it was working well enough. The press conference on Tuesday was all about the midfield ahead of that Cup game, and Eddie insisted, no, it's working well. He thinks it's been doing okay and he can see reasons to stick with it. Well, he's actually changed 2 of the 3 personnel on Wednesday night and stuck with 2 of those, 2 of the guys who weren't in that midfield axis of Bruno, Joe Linton, Tonali. He's stuck with Willock and Longstaff here again today. He's taken Joe Linton out the midfield, the right call. He looks a different player, rejuvenated on the left, and he's only played one of Bruno or Tonali in the 2 games. The suggestion, the suspicion that they can't play together in their skill set in the same side isn't necessarily beneficial to the team as a whole, to the collective. Well, that's been borne out in the last 2. And if them 2 are to play in rotation, well, okay, I don't think that's why Tonali was bought. But if it's a problem, if it's an issue, and Eddie is big enough to admit that and to see that and identify that as a means for the team, as that collective performing better, then 3 cheers for him as a manager, because that would be a big call and a big admission to make. It certainly worked in the last 2, and I thought it did there again today. Bruno back in the middle, and seeing Tonali play like he did on Wednesday night has obviously given him a little kick up the proverbial as well, because I thought he came back in there today and that was his best game of the season. In terms of against top opposition, one of my criticisms of Bruno has been in recent years that yes, he does it at home sometimes against the lesser teams and he dons that superhero's cape. Well, he wore the cape there again today, and a clue, guys, he doesn't even feature in the merit marks either. But I thought the midfield in the last 2, and especially today, it was functioning. Those spaces we spoke about, gap in between the midfield and the defence, well, that has been plugged now, and that is because you've got the running power of Longstaff and Willock who go forward and they go back. Down at Chelsea last weekend, Joe Linton, Bruno, Tonali, it was so flat, it was static. It didn't have the energy and the drive it needed. Now it has, and with the right personnel in, it just might get more out of Bruno or Tonali, depending who plays in that middle role. But one of the criticism of Newcastle of late as well has been, where have the dark arts gone? The dark arts that were almost born during that draw down at Arsenal a couple of seasons back, when it so irked Mikel Arteta and his backroom staff. Now, Eddie's about as mild-mannered, as nice a manager as I've come across, but I don't think he likes Arteta. I don't think there's any love lost between the back rooms either. So what a day to roll out the dark arts and that in-your-face aggression as well. And Arsenal didn't like it, clearly, and there was just so many little examples of it. Late in the game, Nick Pope going down for treatment, affording a time out there. Fabian Schär getting a booking for kicking the ball away. There was an incident in the first half. This was very much within the rules, but captured the energy and the aggression. Anthony Gordon chased Leandro Trossard down just in front of us in the press box, and it was as if Trossard was spooked by his pursuer. He just ran the ball straight out of play. Eddie Howe jumped up and gave Gordon a high five, and again that set the tone, that set the tempo, like Gordon did in the first half on Wednesday night, chasing down and conceding that throw-in within 30 seconds. Now, I thought Anthony Gordon actually tired as the game went on, but during that first half from the right, again, to come back to it, wow, what a menace he was. And in terms of a player setting the tone and getting the crowd into the game, he is absolutely key with that right now. There was another example of those dark arts when, quite comically, Alexander Isak wouldn't let David Raya boot the ball downfield in the first half. In the end, the Arsenal goalie just accepted defeat and threw it out, which won a huge cheer. And again, you know, you talk about things setting the tone, and Isak and Gordon were key to that, but not just that, they had the quality for the goal, and then that link up. I did the video a couple of weeks ago that those two coming back into the team and coming back into form was absolutely key to the direction of Newcastle's season. And how heartening was it to see them linking up. There was another chance in the second half where Gordon just puts it around the outside and Isak's shot is saved, and that was during a passage. There was about 10 minutes after half time where I tweeted at the time, you know, this is 22-23 all over, and you had at the heart of that, you had Sean Longstaff winning the ball, feeding it inside to Isak, who was so much more involved in the game. We've spoken about him being isolated at times this season. He was dropping deep, he was going in behind, he was in the channels, he was everywhere. He seemed as if he was really enjoying himself. They worked it out wide to Gordon. There was then an overlap from Livramento. The fullbacks, wow, the fullbacks defended, the fullbacks attacked. The two centre-halves in the end, they did well, but they didn't have to be particularly outstanding. And Nick Pope didn't have a save to make because everything else around them functioned so well. And to go back to the Chelsea game, Schär and Byrne, well, how exposed were they that day repeatedly? Ended up with the players arguing amongst themselves on the pitch. There was none of that there today. There was a collective will to attack. There was a collective will to defend. And I just thought they were brilliant. And in terms of the merit stars, I can only pick three who were more brilliant than the others. And again, just like Wednesday night, I'm not going to fudge it. I'm quite happy. It might make my life easier in terms of the comments if I did put 2 on 3 stars or 2 on 2 stars, but no, I'm not. And in ascending order, 1 star goes to Sean Longstaff. I've already touched on that stat that Newcastle haven't lost this season with him in the starting 11. And there's a lot of noise around Sean, and I know that sometimes he can be a little bit of a target for criticism in terms of his quality on the ball. I see that. I'm not defending him against that. I'm not going to say that's got to be better, because I think you've got to appreciate what a player is and what a player isn't. I don't think Longstaff is bad on the ball. I think he's a very good technically adept player. He just isn't perhaps of that level of a Tonali and Bruno. That's okay. Players have different qualities. Players bring different things to the team. And right now, in the last 2, Sean Longstaff has brought something Newcastle's midfield has desperately needed. It has, and that was no more evident than there today. His work, his play on the transition. I thought he actually was good on the ball today, getting the ball on the half turn and just quickly moving it forward and having the legs to support, breaking things up, going the other way. I thought, yeah, he really justified what was a big selection by Eddie today. So Sean Longstaff gets the 1 star. 2 star goes to Alexander Isak, the match winner, his best overall game for the entire season, I think, in terms of that all-round performance. And crucially, he took that one big chance he did get. Now, as I said earlier, Isak gave an interview afterwards and said, you know, it's easy. The cross makes it. I've just got to put my head on it. Well, similar chances with probably a greater XG hasn't made look as easy at times this season. So to be in that right place, finding that space for Gordon to locate him with that just incredible cross. And then after that as well, to not rest on it and to not give his opponents. He was an irritant all afternoon. I've referenced already the incident with the goalkeeper, but I just thought apart from that, Isak was tremendous and just showed why that was the level that had us talking about him as a £100 million plus footballer at the back end of last season. That to respond to all the noise and light of, I think it was my story, wasn't it, a couple of weeks ago, about the club not being in contract talks with him and Isak's camp not necessarily wanting a new deal right now and Newcastle not wanting to give him one. And that he said, you know, if you want more money and if you want to be a Champions League player, the easiest way is for you to go out and play like one. Well, it's 3 goals and 3 since then. I thought Isak was brilliant today. 3 stars, well, those go to Lewis Hall. And I said on Wednesday night that this guy is just getting better. This boy, he's only just turned 20. This boy, young man, is getting better every game. He's done it again today. He's taken it to another level. And why? Well, because he was up against Bukayo Saka, an England international, one of the country's most informed players. And given Arsenal's struggles, they tried a lot to go through Saka for inspiration, and there was just none there. This won't be long before Lewis Hall is actually an international teammate of Bukayo Saka if he continues on this trajectory. I thought he pocketed him and he found a little bit of change himself to go upfield and attack at the other end. There was a spell in the second half where he played like prime Paolo Maldini. He was tackling, he was giving it, he was dropping his shoulder, he was recovering, he was everything. So I don't think you guys are going to disagree with this. Please tell me below the line what you think, but I don't think there'll be many will complain with Lewis Hall as, for me, the worthy recipient of 3 stars. There were, of course, so many others who could have populated the podium there. Tino Livramento at right back, really solid. You know, the fullbacks were so composed all day, I thought. Into midfield, that Joe Linton, Joe Willock axis. Is there any surprise that those two are back fit and in form, that Newcastle's fortunes has improved? Bruno, I've already mentioned the manner in which he stepped up against top quality opposition. Anthony Gordon had that brilliant start and put Newcastle into that winning position because of just one of the greatest crosses I've ever seen. So many contenders, but those 3 are my pick. Let me know who you would have had joining Lewis Hall on the podium. I think we'll all agree, you know, we can pin him there, but pick the others as well. And tell me about where Newcastle's season can go from here now. What should be the ambition? Down at Nottingham Forest next Sunday, another game I'll be at, and it's so important, I think, just to maintain this feel good, that they go there and replicate it and continue it and get a positive result going into that international break. And wow, if they did, wouldn't everything feel so different from when it did? I can't believe that was only 6 days ago when I was down at Stamford Bridge and everything felt a little negative, didn't it? So not now, guys. What a week it's been here. The players have turned up, the managers turned up, the stadium's turned up. It's been a brilliant 3 days in these parts. Thank you again for watching. I'll give you one last little scan of this place as ever, and I'll put a link in the description below. Can you believe I started the day writing a piece for the Daily Mail about why Newcastle need to leave St James's Park behind? I still stand by that, but today was a reminder of the power of St James's and the power of the players on it as well. So, okay guys, please hit like and that subscribe button, thanks button as well, comment, everything else. Thanks again for watching, and because it's nearly kick-off, I've actually got scope to get for a quick pint now, so if you do see me out and about, come and say hello. Okay, see you soon, bye-bye.